Going into the UFC, if I was to call that show something, prior to it, during it, or after it, I would call it problems. There was nothing but problems. Look, started the co-main event with Chris Weidman. Chris Weidman is a huge problem, and I'll tell you why. On any given night, he can win the world championship. And people are more than happy to remind Chris that he lost 5 of his last 6. And it always seems like a very baffling and weird thing for somebody to bring up. Numbers don't lie. I mean, why do you think you have to remind that to Chris, or even his fans, or even the audience? Like, just on some off chance that he was having a good day and you wanted to try to bring him down? Or on the off chance that he forgot? Chris Weidman's a problem, and you could talk about his 5 of his last 6, or you could talk about every loss that he's ever had in his career. They've always been a little bit more to it. You could go back to the night he lost his championship, just by example. But then you'd be reminded of this, wheel kick roundhouse that he's never done before, and he ends up taking down and gives up position. There's just more to it. You could go back to the night that he lost to Masausi. But there was a brand new opponent down, where's your hands rule, and nobody fully knew it. Weidman didn't fully know it. Masausi didn't fully know it. The referee in charge thought that he understood, but consulted outside help. The announcers that are telling the story to us, this audience, were a little bit undecided. I'm just sharing with you. All the rules were followed, and I don't make that there was any foul play done. What I'm sharing with you, with every Chris Weidman loss, there's always been a story. You can even go look at his match with Jacare. It's in the 3rd round. He's pitching a shutout. Jacare catches him and puts him down. The reason I tell you Weidman's a problem, on any given night, he'll go win a world championship. You have a guy who's lost 5 of his last 6, but let me ask you a different question. Who's called Chris Weidman out? You see the problem? You know when you have a really good guy, and you know when the media or somebody is trying to pull a guy down for whatever dark personal reasons that they get enjoyment for that. But you also know who is a scary factor within a weight class by one thing. Who calls him out? Chris Weidman only fights main events and co-main events exclusively. If you get on the docket with Chris Weidman, you're about to get your shine. You're about to get sprung into the spotlight. Who calls him out? Who within the division wouldn't like to automatically, not because of their own merits, because of their opponents, be either a main event or a co-main event? Who? The answer is nobody, but you still come back to the same answer when I ask you, who calls Weidman out? If Mr. 5 in his last 6 is representative of where he stands as an athlete today, who calls Weidman out? Oh, all right. So now you know that we're live, but who calls it? You see where he becomes a problem? You see where that whole thing becomes a little bit of a problem? You go into the main event, you've got 2 big problems. Here's the thing with Derrick Lewis. Derrick Lewis has an ability to get better in a way that nobody else does. Thank you, champion. In a way that nobody else does, which is he can simply lose weight. The more weight that Derrick Lewis loses, he automatically gets a little bit faster. Oh, and by the way, his cardio just naturally can go a little bit longer, which means those big, strong punches that you see, you now have to avoid more of them. It's just a numbers game. It's just a numbers game. It's a numbers game of volume. If Derrick Lewis throws 10 punches at you, he ups his chances of connecting and hurting you than if he threw 4, right? I mean, I'm stating the obvious, but this is what's happening in front of your eyes. I don't know of anybody else within the sport whose skills can grow just by losing some weight, except for Derrick Lewis. I mean, in any other division, that really isn't the case. You've even got some heavyweights where you would argue, well, they could put on a few pounds and their power would go up. Anybody else in a division, the number's the number. Derrick Lewis, we're watching get better in front of our eyes, that you can tie to one very clear thing, which is whatever the number read on the scale the day before. So if you break down his fight with Olnick also a problem. Nobody wants to fight Olnick. Olnick's got this very bizarre durability. Very odd durability. He's got very odd submission skills. He has a very odd want to fight harder guys in bigger positions. Like, he's kind of one of these guys with ice going through his veins that really enjoys competing. So you put these two together that are a total mess. They're a problem for anybody, any way that you want to do it. Now, Derrick Lewis, we may have one piece of resolution, which is Derrick Lewis called out Curtis Blades after the fight. Curtis Blades went on social media. He said, and I quote, "I've got dibs on the Black Beast. I like that fight." And when you want to talk about problems, you best believe Curtis Blades is also a big problem.